This bottle of bourbon was full before I watched this movie. I just came home and I needed to cheer myself up. What's going on, everyone, and welcome to my review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Fuck's sake. What's going on, everyone, and welcome to my review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Now, this is the 5th installment in the Indiana Jones franchise, and I'm going to have to come clean with you right now. I didn't grow up with this franchise at all. I actually only watched these movies for the first time about 6 months ago, and I'm just going to give you a brief rundown of all of them. I'm not going to do separate reviews for them all because what else is there to really say? Raiders of the Lost Ark, in my opinion, is one of the best action movies of all time. Well, I don't even need to say in my opinion because fuck's sake. Like, it's Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's great. It's nearly perfect. I'd give it 4.5 stars. The only thing that's dragging it down for me is the character of Marion, who I don't like. I don't like her. I find her annoying. I find her a burden. She's not a good character, I don't think. And also, there's no real emotional punch with the movie. It's just a really fun time, but damn good movie. Temple of Doom I slightly prefer over the first movie. I just think that the action in that is more exciting, like the minecart scene, the fucking rolling ball, the spiky room. Just, it's all so great. It's so much fun, but it's got this dark, twisted edge to it, which I really like. I was watching it, I was like, holy shit, what the fuck is going on? This is crazy. The only thing that I don't like about it is the character of Willie, and just to say I don't like her is an understatement. I fucking hate her. But yeah, I think it's slightly better than the first. I don't understand the problems with it. And Last Crusade, in my opinion, is the best of the entire franchise. It has that emotional punch that was missing from the first two movies with his relationship with his dad. I think their dynamic was so funny. Dad? What? Dad? What? Dad? I love that movie. The action is just as good. It's definitely a bit of a, it's definitely softer from Temple of Doom, but that doesn't hinder my enjoyment of it at all. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I basically hated. Like, that movie was a shocker. Harrison Ford was obviously a lot of fun, but ugh. And now with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest. I wasn't really looking forward to this movie that much. At all. In fact, I thought there's barely any chance that it's going to be good. I just thought the way it ended in Kingdom was stupid. But I also had my hopes that James Mangold would come along and do something good with the character and the franchise and the story, because he's an excellent director. I really love Ford vs. Ferrari. I love Identity. So my expectations for this one were moderate. I was going in with the mindset, I hope this is better than Crystal Skull, but not necessarily expecting it to be. And that's basically all I can say, because I had to just temper my expectations. Like, you know, you can't go in expecting the original trilogy. So starting off with the positives of this thing, Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. He is one of the best characters in film. I love him. He's so funny. He's charming. He's a little bit of an asswipe, but you can't not love him. And the directions that they take him in this one, with him getting older and aging, I found really, really well handled. He never, like, you know, I was never well, there was a few times, but it wasn't too often that I watched it and was like, there's no fucking way an 80-year-old man can do this shit. And they acknowledge that a few times as well, which I really, really love. And overall, he just retains his signature blend of humor and just wit, and I love him. She is my goddaughter, and it's past her bedtime! I also love the small supporting roles played by Toby Jones and Antonio Banderas. They are both great actors, and Toby Jones just eats it up as Harrison Ford's friend, and I love him. I wish he was in the movie more, but yeah, he's great. And Antonio Banderas, he's a legend. He's so good in everything. I love that man. He's so charming. I also thought Mads Mikkelsen was quite good as the villain. I don't think he's an excellent villain. He's definitely not as good of a villain as Mola Ram from Temple of Doom. But he definitely does the job. He feels like a classic Indiana Jones villain. He reminds me very much of the villain from the first movie. And I found his plan, while somewhat preposterous, entertainingly campy. Like, he's got a plan which I find interesting and ridiculous and silly, but not too much that it spoils the movie for me. And also, the action sequences in this film, I was surprised. They were really well directed. I think that there's a lot of standout scenes. Some of them might even go down as some of the best action sequences in the franchise. The opening sequence on the train that you see in the trailer is excellent. Him riding around those little three-wheeled carts in Morocco is just exhilarating. There's a bunch of other stuff too. I don't want to say too much because I'm not going to do any spoilers in this video. But the action sequences are really well directed. And the CGI used is not nearly as noticeable as it was in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. For example, that movie, like, you can tell some of them, they're just standing in front of green screens and stuff like that. Like, they're supposed to be riding through the bush. It's just, it kind of burns your eyes because you're like, oh, that is so, like, the characters in frame and what's behind them on the green screen is so miscolored and stuff like that. I think that Dial of Destiny really, really ramps it up with the action sequences and retaining not all of the original charm, but certainly a lot more than what Kingdom had. Also, this is a thing that has been quite controversial, and it was always going to be from day one, and that is the de-aging of Harrison Ford in the flashback scenes. I was convinced. I don't know, like, why some people think it's absolutely atrocious, because I thought it looked brilliant. There was some parts when he spoke that it kind of was a little too, like, you can tell it's Harrison Ford's, you know, he's 80 years old. It's an 80-year-old voice coming out of someone who's probably in their 30s. That wasn't great, but he doesn't speak too much in the de-aging scenes, and I actually was watching it and I forgot that he was de-aged. Like, I looked at his face the first time and I'm like, holy shit, they've travelled back in time and just filmed Harrison Ford when he was younger. And my final positive for this thing is John Williams' score. This man is a genius. His scores are always so good and so brilliant. And this film has some of its own stuff in there as well that is different from the rest of the franchise, but it also retains that, you know, classic Indiana Jones theme, which I just love. Hope you enjoyed my rendition of that theme. I just did that by ear, actually. I'm pretty fucking good, aren't I? Moving on to the mixed aspects, while the score was brilliant, the overall audio and sound design in some parts for me was a little off. I kind of mentioned it earlier. With the de-aging, the voice just doesn't really match his face that much when he's in the flashback sequences. And there were some times when the dubbing felt a little bit strange and out of it. You could notice it with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull as well, and I don't think it's as bad here, but it's definitely like, that doesn't sound quite right. It sounds more like he's just voicing over the lines and he's not actually, you know, in this big place. Also, there's this one scene when they're in a cave and the voice echoes. I don't know how accurate that is to actually what the echo would sound like in a cave like that. But for the sake of the movie, I found it very distracting. Like, it literally was just echoing. It was almost like a delay pedal. It was just repeating and repeating when they're trying to talk. And it's just like, what? What are they trying to say? This is weird. But another good part of the sound design was something I've been noticing a lot in recent movies, and that is the making use of the surround sound. For example, they'll, you know, fire a bullet up to the top left hand corner of the screen, and you can hear shit break and crack and stuff behind you. I thought that was really good. It made it feel a lot more immersive. Now, moving on to the negatives of this thing, I'm just going to start kind of from the top. Phoebe Waller-Bridge as Helena Shaw. Oh my god. I thought no character could ever come close to being as fucking irritating as Willie from Temple of Doom. But this mole came this fucking close to being just as bad, if not worse. I actually, every single time she was on screen, I was just like, oh. Because she has this weird kind of unmotivated plan, that she kind of like, you know, switches sides and stuff like that. Kind of like Ray Winstone's character from Crystal Skull. It's just like, who is this guy? What's his end goal? And I felt the exact same with her. I was like, why is she doing this? Why is she being such a bitch? Oh, why is she nice now? Why is she being a bitch? Why is she nice now? Why is she being a bitch again? It's just, I could not stand her. She was smug, she was a smartass, and it wasn't just the writing, which I hate to say. It was actually, I think, the way she delivered it. Because she wasn't charmingly smug or witty. She was just irritating. And she always just had this smug look on her face as though she's, you know, got anything on Indiana Jones. And it's just, the way they position her in the movie, I hated. I cannot stand the way she's just almost undermining Indiana Jones's character, because, oh, I'm younger, look at what I can do, look what you can't do. Which, I get it, she's obviously younger and he's older, but this is Indiana Jones we're talking about. You don't fucking put him on a lower level compared to some mole like that. And I could not stand her. Even though you're supposed to grow a little bit closer to her towards the end of the movie, I never did. I still hated her just as much as always. Like, throughout the movie, every time she was on screen, and she's on screen a lot, I was thinking, can't you just fucking die already? Only part of her character that I enjoyed was actually the way Indiana Jones treated her. He didn't stand up for her shit too much, and every single time he shot her down when she was being a smarmy little bitch, I was like, oh yes, thank God, because she was so irritating. But then it makes me wonder why they wrote the character like that anyway, because she's not enjoyable to watch. There's nothing about her that's like redeeming. She's a bad person. And I'm just glad that there were a few times throughout this movie when Harrison Ford's like, hey, fuck you, who do you think you are? I've been doing this shit my whole life. Another negative I had with this thing was that Moroccan kid. I can't remember his name because he was so underutilized, which I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing because he was a pain, but he did nothing in the movie, he did nothing for the movie, he could not act to save his life. I mean, just some of the line deliveries, I'm not gonna imitate them because and because some of the stuff that he says is stuff that would be spoilers because he doesn't really say much, but he was just kind of like another burden. That was just another person there that I'm just like, I don't know you, I don't like you, you've got nothing on Short Round. And also there were some other minor things in the first two acts that bothered me a little bit, not too much. There was a few contrivances and stuff like that with the villains just popping out of nowhere. I'm like, how the fuck did you get there? This is like a cross fucking world trip. And then all of a sudden, you know, just able to follow their every move. It didn't really make a lot of sense to me how they just kept coming back in the most bizarre situations. But it wasn't enough to actually bother me too much because the movie had the goods to back it up. It had the action sequences, it had Harrison Ford, but just those parts with those characters, the villains in particular, when they just somehow always lurking, it just felt very contrived and forced to keep the action going. Now getting into the real shit. I'm not going to spoil anything, so don't stress. But once this movie enters its final act, it goes from here and just goes. I could not believe the direction this movie went in. It actually makes Kingdom of the Crystal Skull look half decent, and I'm not joking about that. I was watching it, I'm thinking, oh, this is better than Crystal Skull. This is definitely better than what they did in Kingdom of the Crystal... Fuck, why am I lying to myself? This is just as bad as Kingdom of the Crystal Skull's stupid ending. The directions that this thing goes in just opens up a bajillion plot holes to the point where I was watching the last 10 minutes of this movie and I'm like, okay, now that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make... None of this movie works now. What's going on? Who thought that this would be a good idea? And again, it's okay if some things don't matter because normally these movies have the goods to back them up. And even in the original trilogy, there's some things that just don't make sense, but it doesn't matter. But this movie doesn't have the goods to back it up. And the amount of plot holes and things that just make zero sense bother me more, because it just... I'm thinking about that and not about all the other good stuff, because it's so much more, like, clear and open and ridiculous this time. Like, this film went off of a cliff in its final act. It's so preposterous and just silly and unnecessary. And although the Indiana Jones movies have had supernatural elements throughout them all, minus Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, they're all very reserved supernatural elements, almost as though they're kind of like some mythical thing that only ever shows its face, you know, very, very occasionally. And that's fine, because it still keeps it slightly grounded, but gives you that kind of fantastical element too. This movie goes, and so does Crystal Skull, goes full-on sci-fi mode. And it's just... oh, God. That's what we're doing? Really? We're doing this? Oh, no. And when I said earlier that none of this movie makes sense, I mean, I'm not exaggerating. Literally none of this movie makes any sense now because of the way this thing wraps up. It's so dumb. It's stupid. It's bad. And I'm gonna go as far as to say that I hated the final 30 minutes of this movie. Maybe even final 45 minutes. You can see on my thumbnail, it was just like me during the last 30 minutes of this movie just going, fuck you, movie. I hope you fucking go fuck yourself. Oh my God. And the worst thing for me is that it doesn't even have, like, you know, an emotional punch in the, like, conclusion of it. Like, it kind of just all wraps up and just the movie ends, and it left me feeling nothing. I was really hoping for something like, you know, I was thinking, okay, look, this is absolutely ridiculous and stupid and way too out there for an Indiana Jones movie. But if it has, like, a touching final scene or something like that, I might be like, okay, look, I can accept it for what it is. But it doesn't. The final scene in this thing is so forced and contrived and plays on nostalgia and stuff like that. It's just... it doesn't work at all. Oh, God. I was sour by the end of this movie because I was just like, oh, no, really? Oh, fuck. And this is the thing. I can't say I went in with high expectations at all, because I didn't. I tempered them very, very well. But with how solid the first two acts were, I was thinking, hell, this could be a 3.5 film, like, 3.5 film. 3.5 star film. Fuck me, I don't know what I'm saying. This could be a 3.5 star movie. And if it wraps it up well, it could even, like, bump up to 4 stars. But then my enjoyment just went down and down and down and down and down until I was just left thinking, I don't like this movie. I don't like it. Because after how good the first two acts, well, not even how good, like how actually surprisingly decent the first two acts were, the way this film wraps up is just horrid, and I hated it. So overall, while this film definitely has its moments and Harrison Ford is great in it, the characters of Helena Shaw and that other kid just really hampered the film, and then the way this movie just goes off of a cliff in its final act and turns into a complete shit show really ruined it for me. I was so disappointed in the way this film wrapped up, and I can't even pretend to, like, say, oh yeah, the positives outweigh the negatives, because the way the final act impacts the rest of the film is just too much for me. It's just... It's all rendered incoherent. It feels so unnecessary. There's no real final arc with anything. It's kind of just... Why did this happen? We should have just ended it with Last Crusade. Like, there's not really a reason for this to exist. I'm going to give Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny 2.5 stars. Guys, thanks so much for watching my review on this. If you've seen this movie, please let me know what you think of it. I hope you enjoyed it more than I did. But, yeah, it's a shame. But I can't say I wasn't expecting a poor movie, but I was just disappointed because I was thinking, you know what, this is actually surprising me. And then it was just like, ooh, bolt, nope. Shit show again. Anyway, I'll see you all later. Bye.